just didn't know what the heck was going on. And so I really took a deep dive in my faith, to be honest. I just went deep into, like, I believed in Jesus, but I never really, like, you know, when it says following Jesus is actually turning away from sin. And so there's no...
Bringing the gospel message to college campuses across the country.
We started at Auburn University. We had 5,000 students show up. We had over 200 get baptized.
Starmer! It's 95% fighting age men. It makes no sense. It's economic migrants.
I would just say open the doors, honestly.
Anyone and everyone?
Yeah.
How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to feed my kids?
I've been homeless for 3 years and I can't get a house.
That is...
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children of all ages, welcome to the Mind, Body and Soul podcast with me, your lovely host, John Morris, the artist, author, and mental health mentor. Let's start with a joke, shall we? Why did the world go to therapy? Because even the globe has issues that need to be resolved. Terrible jokes, oh my goodness, we're starting off with terrible jokes, but it is kind of fitting when you look at all the things that are going on in the world today. It has been a raucous week. It has been a really interesting week with Justin Bieber. Again, if you guys have seen, you know, coming to faith, we're going to be talking about Justin Bieber and so much more in today's show. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump and the hurricane effort that he has been really moving forward with. And at the time of recording this, it's just been reported to me that Donald Trump has actually had more allegations and more things come out against him. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. There seems to be a lot of people now turning to more and more towards the Trump supporters, away from the Harris supporters and the Biden supporters, especially given the fact that Biden and Harris just released for Taiwan, for Ukraine, and for another country as well that's just slipped my mind, hundreds of millions of dollars. And for the United States, they gave them about $717 basically to try and recover after a hurricane that was worse than Hurricane Katrina in Helene. And this is really where we're starting in our world. It's been a very bizarre world. It's a very, very bizarre week. More and more people have been turning to faith, as you saw in the clip on the show. And I think that's maybe a good place to start, because we're going to start with some good news more than anything else. And this is going on in the United States right now. And I think it's a pretty cool thing that's going on, because Jesus doesn't look at your physical form. Jesus looks at, you know, what's going on with you inside. You know, man looks on the outside, but God looks on the heart. So check this out. I think this is a nice way to start, and it kind of sets the tone for today's show.
Is a Christian mentorship effort that began last fall at Auburn University has become a nationwide movement. The Unite Us events are drawing thousands of students to hear the gospel. CBN's Paul Petit takes us to a recent gathering at the University of Arkansas.
Crowds at Bud Walton Arena are usually here to cheer Razorback basketball. This night would be much different. With loud voices and raised hands, nearly 10,000 college students joined together.
When we gather all together, just that many people on a college campus, it's just really encouraging to know that, like, our God is greater than anything that we're gonna face in this world.
This Unite Us is one of a series bringing the gospel message to college campuses across the country.
We started at Auburn University. We had 5,000 students show up. We had over 200 get baptized. We next went to FSU, Florida State, second biggest partying school in the nation. We had 4,500 students come, and I believe we had about 350 students get baptized at that event.
It then swept through the universities of Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and South Carolina, with numbers growing along the way. Tanya calls the mission a simple one, bringing hope to a generation.
Just getting to be with your neighbors and their friends as they pray with you through your struggles and being open about those that you normally wouldn't be open with. So just overall powerful in that.
If you've experienced lack of clarity in your purpose over the last week, hold up your flashlight.
We've had students come in and say, hey, I came in thinking I was going to take my life. I left with the most joy I've ever had. I came in not being a part of any community, and now I'm serving in my local church.
Unite Us events operate by connecting with Christian student leaders and feature speakers, testimonies, prayer, and baptism.
So we're going to stop that there. It's a really interesting thing. It's a really passionate thing, as you can tell. I think the thing that's concerning me is we're going to go further forward in this, for people that are not of faith and don't understand, again, what, the Bible talks about and things, what's concerning is, first of all, if it's genuine, and I firmly believe that a lot of people that are coming to faith right now is genuine. It's spoken about in Scripture. This is not something that's just happening, okay? This is not something that's just a whim. This is actually, happening because it was prophesied in Scripture. And it's one of the things that, again, you're living through, you're seeing it, you're experiencing it, and it's quite scary because at the end of the day, the Bible talks about this, that people are going to return to him, that Jesus is going to call to his own, and he's talking about the birth pains. And again, the more and more you see about it, the more and more that we are going through the stages that the Bible is talking about. Every prophecy is being fulfilled, as we talked about in last week's show, that it's happening more and more. And what I find really interesting this past week is about Justin Bieber. But before we get to Senior Bieber, I've got a video to show you because, well, things appear to be, really great. There's a revival, there's stuff going on. It's not great everywhere. So check this out. Sexual pornographic material. And as you'll see, this is something that's happening more and more. It's legalized pedophilia is the best way of it, or legalized perversion is the best way of describing it. It's a legalized grooming of teenagers. And this is happening more and more. It's happened all over Hollywood. And we've seen that this past week with Mel Gibson speaking out about it. A lot of Hollywood celebrities leaving, the district. Sylvester Stallone leaving the district. And again, for a lot of people that are, in Hollywood, they're thinking, oh, wow, this is amazing. Sylvester Stallone's moved. Elon Musk has moved. But the problem is they're taking their Californian ideals, the things that, were really, really, meaningful to them. And they're taking them over to these other states. And there's a lot of concerning stuff that's going on. There's a lot of concerning stuff that's happening. And it's... What do you make of it? What do you make of what's going on? If you're hearing there's a revival going on, the stuff in the Bible, the stuff that's going on. I've just got the facts actually in front of me here because my phone wasn't working before. But it was the past 7 days, the U.S. military sent aid packages to the following countries: Ukraine, 800 million, Israel, 870 million, Taiwan, 500 million. 63,000, so on, so on. Basically, nearly 20. Just a lot. I can't do the math in my head. It's crazy the fact that that's going on and it's happening in our time. More and more people are turned to Jesus. And again, the Bible talks about this. Matthew 24 talks about this in significant detail. And again, I think it's important not to read too much into these things that are going on and happening, but equally being aware of what is happening. And with that in mind, one of the things that caught my attention the most of all this past sort of week was Justin Bieber. I think he's been on the minds and tongues of a lot of people, certainly in the Christian circles, certainly in faith-based circles. And Justin Bieber has had some really interesting developments, shall we say. Take a look at this and you see what I mean.
I just didn't know what the heck was going on. And so I really took a deep dive in my faith, to be honest. I just went deep into, like, I believed in Jesus, but I never really, like, you know, when it says following Jesus is actually turning away from sin. And so there's no, what it talks about in the Bible, it's like there's no obedience. There's no faith without obedience. So it's like I had faith about, like, oh, I believe Jesus died on the cross for me, but I never really implemented it into my life. I never, like, was like, I'm gonna be obedient.
So when did you decide to actually move within the guidelines, and how did you find yourself away from, yeah, I believe in Jesus, but I'm gonna drink or do drugs or sleep around or all these other distractions? How did you get out of that world? What was the turning point for you?
I think it was my perception of who Jesus really was, you know? I'd had really bad examples of Christians in my life who would say one thing and do another. So they were my direct example of who Jesus was.
That's why you didn't take it seriously.
I didn't take it as seriously because I didn't have good examples.
Good role models.
Yeah. The way I look at my relationship with God and with Jesus is I'm not trying to earn God's love by doing good things. God has already loved me for who I am before I did anything to earn and deserve it. It's a free gift by accepting Jesus and just giving your life to him. And what he did is the gift. The forgiveness is the thing that we look at and, you know, I'm gonna worship you, God, because you gave me something so good.
Do you think that if you hadn't redefined what Jesus was and reclaimed it into something that was worthy of practice for you, which then led you on a path of reconciliation with your wife, do you think the person that the you of then was on a path of self-destruction? Do you feel that you were you were self-destructing?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%. Yeah. I don't know if I'd be alive, for sure. What the heck was going on? And so really dark. So I'm very, very grateful to have influence.
So we'll pause it there for a minute. So there's a lot of stuff that's coming out about Justin Bieber and, you know, how he's going to be the world's greatest worship leader, how he's going to lead people to faith, how he's going to do this, how he's going to do that. And you see in that video, you know, he is a guy who quite obviously has had issues with drugs, with drink. There's been a lot of stuff that he's faced in his life. And you can see that by his face, by his body language and everything that's there. But when you understand a little bit more of the story that's going on in Hollywood and, dare I say it, these entertainment circles, you understand a little bit more of why, you know, he was struggling. It's come out, and again, and I'm not going to name names because it hasn't been proven as of yet, and we don't want to be done for slander or anything like that. We're sure that deals with fact as much as we possibly can here. And it has come out that several major players in Hollywood and in that world, in the entertainment industries, really took advantage of Justin, really took advantage of him as a person, as a young child, and so much other stuff that was there, again, without saying too much. And I think that's being exposed as well. There's a lot of things. And again, this is the things, you know, Charles Stanley used to talk about this, that your lies will be exposed. So if you've got stuff that's in the closet right now that you're sitting there saying, you know what, I need to get this out, I need to get this out, then get it out. Because at the end of the day, if you don't, you know, it is going to be exposed. It is going to show up. And it's going to show up in horrible ways. And people tend to be more forgiving when you've come forward and said, you know what, this happened in my life. It was at a time when, you know, I was struggling, I was ill, I was X, Y, Z, whatever it might have been. But they tend to be more forgiving when you're the one that actually, you know, raises the issue, as opposed to if you're the one that's caught. With that in mind, we are going to be back talking about Justin Bieber and so much more in the next part of today's show. But for now, we are going to jump to commercial break.
Have you ever wanted to celebrate your fur baby in the best way possible? Something that you can treasure, something that captures the heart and soul of your furry friend? Well, look no further. With paintourpet.com, you have the opportunity to commission an amazing painting from internationally renowned artist John Morris. John has worked with literally hundreds and hundreds of clients from around the world. John's paintings not only have the ability to capture the heart and soul of each and every subject that he paints, but also has the power to evoke an emotional response from all who see his work. Now, if this sounds like the very thing you've been searching for to celebrate your fur baby in the most amazing way possible, then don't delay. Head on over to paintourpet.com today for a free, no obligation quote and to order your very, very own custom-made, hand-painted masterpiece. That's paintourpet.com. We look forward to hearing from you today.
And you may have guessed who's sponsoring this portion of the show. Sorry, folks, we've got a little bit of light that's blasting on in here, so it's making me look like I've got a giant crease in the middle of my head. I haven't. I'm perfectly fine. But it's Paint Our Pet, of course, and you can check out more and more of my paintings over at thejohnmorris.co.uk. It was paintourpet.com. That's the name of the business. But if you head to thejohnmorris.co.uk, you'll be able to check out the paintings of cats, dogs, portraits of people, nature, and so much more. And that's a big portion of what we're doing that we're going to talk about in the following weeks. If you actually head there, you will actually see we've got a brand new website that's under construction right now, looking really good. Really excited about this because I've reopened the mental health practice. In fact, let's pull up a little banner here, shall we? Let's see. There we go. If you're ready to start changing your mental health thing, come and check out the battles we all face, of course, but come and visit thejohnmorris.co.uk for mental health help today if you are struggling, and more about that in later on in the show. So as we head back on over to the likes of Justin Bieber and you're listening to his story, you're seeing what's going on, this next video is going to expose a little bit of the stuff that's going on. And while that's happening, I'm going to try and sort out the lighting so I don't look like I'm disappearing. But have a watch of this.
I feel violated right now. Wow. Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. Like that was bad.
Yeah.
Wow, look at your eyes. What music are you listening to?
Would you rather have to be naked on stage during one full song, or drink a cup of blended worms? Answer Justin Bieber. I have like little girl fans. I can't believe it.
You guys never gave me the sex talk. Okay. So why don't you give me the sex talk? I feel uncomfortable right now. Oh. Why do you want to know the sex talk from a 15-year-old boy? That's pretty weird. Oh. Let's talk about the album.
You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my, partners and whatnot.
So you see something like that, and I mean, at that moment in time, it genuinely made me quite emotional because it's public exploitation. Now, I think it's very important not to read too much into it, but at the same point to look at the facts and look at things for what they actually are. My wife and I, Katie, we were talking about this a lot yesterday, and with James Corden, being one of the chief people there, and it's almost like you don't want to believe, that those kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that it was or it wasn't, but there is some uncomfortableness in the video that you saw there with Justin Bieber. And what I find, I think, most striking of all, it's a little bit like Colin McCulkin and Colin Culkin, whatever. I always get his name wrong, but also Lindsay Lohan and a whole host of others that have been in Hollywood, that have been celebrities when they were children, and how they have gotten older. Edward Furlong being another. It's when you look at how they were as children versus how they are as adults, in terms of facially, in terms of what they've gone through, in terms of what's happened, and it's dark. I mean, you saw Justin Bieber earlier on. We're going to finish off the clip a little bit in a moment or two, but it's dark. It's unsettling. It's sad, and I think that's part of the problem. And it has been for many years, not just in the United States. It also was over here with the United Kingdom, with people like Rolf Harris and Jimmy Savile. That it was not policed in terms of the environment, wasn't policed well enough because nobody sat there and thought these guys could be predators on young girls. And there was people that would write in, there was people that would talk, there was people that would, comment and raise concern and everything that was going on. But it wasn't policed. It wasn't thought of until by the masses, until actually it became a massive issue. And Justin Bieber there, like I say, it's what Arnold Schwarzenegger would say. It's the difference between playful behavior 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and what's acceptable now. Like nowadays, I would be very wary of actually hugging people, and I'd be very wary of having people hug me. That is the kind of society we live in. You saw that in the UFC, super fights, where one of the fighters, I think he put his arm around one of the ring girls, and she basically, I think, tried to take him to court, probably did take him to court for sexual harassment. This is the level that we're in now. You can find yourself in a great deal of trouble, even by innocent conversation. And I think in some ways, yes, it's important to be aware of what you're saying, what you're doing. There's no doubt about that. But I think where it's blown out of proportion now is if somebody's hugged or somebody, brushes up against you, that now all of a sudden you're a predator, you can be taken to court, you can have your entire career destroyed just because of this. And yet there are, the extremists out there. I was hearing today that of all the people that were released from prisons early here in the United Kingdom to make room for the rioters, that I think, 95% of them have actually been returned to prison. And you say, well, what do you expect? So there's a lot of things that's going on with regards to what's happened in Hollywood. It should never have happened in terms of children being molested, in terms of children being trafficked. Obviously, P. Diddy, all that story going on, that's a whole story in itself, which we're not going to get into today. We want to try and stay on theme and stay on track. But it's interesting now how people are speaking out. We are at a turning point and a tipping point, which is, again, something the Bible has been talking about for so long. The fact that I'm talking about the Bible, the fact that I'm talking about church, the fact that I'm talking about Jesus live on the air, again, was something that I never thought that I would do. Because when I parted ways with the church, I parted ways because of mental health issues, because of bullying, because of mistreatment, because of politics and mismanagement and all the other stuff. And I was done with it. I was not done with Jesus, but I was done with the church. And yet I find myself now more and more, having these strange conversations and this strange thing going on inside, which is, again, so I know it to be very honest and very genuine. Want to remind you folks as well, if you haven't already subscribed, our numbers are actually growing exponentially. At the moment, we are closing in on 900 subscribers, and I think we gained 170 subscribers, I think it was, thank you, literally in the last week. So let's make it to the 1,000. Let's try and do something really cool, really special for the 1,000. To let you guys and girls know as well, we also have memberships now available on YouTube. And I'm kind of sussing that out. I'm kind of figuring that out as I go along. But we're going to have some fun with that. And there's going to be exclusive content, exclusive reveals, exclusive giveaways from your friendly worldwide artist, and maybe even some mental health sessions as well up for grabs. So if you haven't already subscribed, you haven't already checked in and got yourself a membership, you've got Silver, Gold, and Platinum Ultra, then go and check that out, because it supports the channel, it supports yours truly, and ensures that we can continue doing the show. And it's also really awesome for you guys as well. So a little plug there. But yeah, when we're talking about obviously what's going on with Justin Bieber, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't let him talk in his own words. So here's the second part of the interview.
But he was in the dirt, and he found me in my dirt and pulled me out. Like I said before, I'm a Jesus follower, and I just want to be led by, when you accept Jesus, he says that now you walk with the Holy Spirit. So I think I just want to be led by the Holy Spirit. We're not really good at the end of the day. At the core, I don't believe humans are good. And people might, twist this and make me seem like I'm saying humanity's not good. I don't know.
Tell you the truth.
I just feel like at the core, I fight every day temptation and things that, are instinctive to do, whether it's, whatever it is. lie, be greedy, all these things that just naturally come. Those naturally come. I got to fight to not be that. So maybe humanity's, it's come to a place of being really, it's broken. I mean, it's just look around. I mean, the pain in this world, it's just so, it's like, it's obvious. And people are looking for hope, and they're looking for a way out, and they're looking for an escape, and they're looking for truth, and they're looking for, and I'm just, I've gotten the opportunity with my journey to just see a God who's accepts me, loves me. They call him the Savior, and I believe that to be true, that Jesus saved me.
It's so here's the thing, from a personal point of view, you hear something like that and it is a great message of hope. It's a great message of optimism. The cynic in me immediately was like, well, if it's true, because again, a lot of people, they do things to revitalize their career. They do. But again, as I listen to him talk on a personal level and as a professional level, I'm evaluating, I'm watching his facial features, I'm watching the way he's talking, and watching the focus that he has into what he's saying. And if it is genuine, I mean, that's a great thing. I'm all for anything that's helping people's lives get better, and especially where we are today. If you believe in Jesus, you believe, in eternal salvation, you can understand completely, what's going on and what's happening. You can also understand why so many people are returning back to the church, like what we saw earlier on. Let's just put that clip up. We'll put it on without the sound. But you can see people coming to faith. You can see people turning around, and this always happens. Historically speaking, we've always had this, where people will be in absolutely dire straits, and it'll be, horrible situations and struggling situations and really terrible things that are going on. And they will see a revival. After 9/11 happened, there was a revival. After, times after the Second World War, there was a revival. There was so much that was going on, so much that was happening within the churches. And here's the thing. Many of you won't know this. Many of you won't necessarily believe this, but I think it's probably time that you knew that at one point I was a preacher. I could stand up and I could preach this book inside and out, backwards and forwards, and twice on Sunday. I never had a problem with it. I never used to necessarily write sermons down, except when I felt that I had to and I was being watched. Now, not a problem. I'm getting back to being able to talk in my normal way, in a normal speed and normal things. For those of you that don't know and haven't seen the episode on my health and things, there had been some quite serious health issues that happened this year as a result of fertility treatment and some of the pills that I was on. And it got to a point where I really struggled to put together coherent cognitive sentences and actually be able to think clearly. And I'm delighted to say, really, as of, what are we in now, October, really as of September. So you're talking 8-9 months since all that happened. And it was 8-9 months of pure hell. I mean, it really was, to the point I was at the lowest of the lows. I couldn't get any lower. It was as bad as it could get. I will leave it at that. But when things started to change for me, when I started feeling that I needed to do these shows again, I started needing to be on air, I started to have, a lot of stuff starting to surface up in me. And I found that it was a really good thing. Even if I was speaking to a small audience initially, I was like, okay, at least I'm doing something. At least I'm back on the air in some ways. At least I'm able to communicate, and I'm able to cognitively, get the speed back up. And because you've no idea, for someone like me, that when you're not able to talk, you're not able to think clearly, it's very, very difficult. And when I see things happening like this, and I see Jesus' handprint on my life again, and Justin Bieber's life, because again, Jesus leaves. Do you say it leaves tracks essentially? It's like Dumbledore says, magic leaves traces. Jesus leaves traces. You can notice, you can see what's going on, what's happening. We are in one of the darkest times, even though there's like global prosperity, so we're told. But the thing about it is there isn't, because what's actually going on and what's actually happening is you have got extreme, prosperity for some and very little for others, and other people are really struggling. As we're going to see momentarily, there's a lot of unrest, there's a lot of divide. And again, like I've said so many times before, you have to understand that you are being played by governments. Governments are not your friends. Everything that the government touches in one form or another, the NHS, medical services, the police, the law enforcement, the fire brigade, the fire services, lawyers, courts, everything that's there. People are being arrested. They're being dragged from their homes. Here in the UK, we've got 3,300 people every single year that have been arrested and dragged from their homes within the last 12 months. The same cannot be said for the United States, because I believe it's actually in excess of 3,300 people. I could be wrong. I need to double check those facts and figures and refresh my memory. But this is what's happening. This is what is going on. And I think it's so important to be aware of it. And I'm now in a place where, quite frankly, we're starting to look at, okay, what's going on here? Are we safe in our country? And both my wife and I, we've said no. We don't feel we're safe in our country. With that in mind, we're going to jump to a commercial break, and I'll tell you a little bit more as to what's going on when we return. Are you struggling with your mental health, anxiety, trauma, struggling to let go, struggling with depression? You're not alone. So many people around the world are struggling with the exact same things as you each and every single day. And finding a good therapist now is becoming harder and harder to do. But rest assured, there is someone there that can help. John Morris has just reopened his mental health practice. And if you head to thejohnmorris.co.uk, you can head on over and check out the mental health practice. So that is super, super cool. I'm delighted to be able to announce that. We give independent advice, and I've got a slogan that's there, because by law, I'm meant to agree with everything that the client says. Well, the Sadhguru said, if you're looking for a guru, you're looking for a teacher, you're looking for someone to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, you don't want them to agree with absolutely every single thing that you say. So my slogan is this: I will listen to everything that you say, but I won't always agree with you. And I think it's important that we remember that. With that in mind, we want to look at, let's bring up the clip again with what's going on where that pastor was dragged from. Because I know we touched on this issue, but we didn't really speak a whole lot about it. So against her parents' wishes, against her wishes, she was essentially forced to read and recite this material, which again, looking at it, it's like, how is this legal? How is this happening? The thing that still concerns me, folks, I know if Biden and Harris get in, that we are going to have an entire leftist world. We're going to have a Western world, an entire woke culture. Wokeism was originally brought about by respect, and it was by love and care and equality and all those things we talked about a couple of weeks ago in the show. But it's become something so dark and so horrible now on how it's been used. But here's the crazy thing. If you are on the right side, as you're going to see momentarily, you're now known as a Nazi, as a racist. That's why I'm opting for balance. But then that might make me, a combination of both. So, I might be a Nazi, I might be a racist, I might be, wokeism, I might be, completely and utterly out there. Who knows? But there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now, but for someone to be arrested for standing up, and he's not the only one, but for someone to be arrested again for standing up and saying, no, this isn't right. A child should not be reading porn in schools to people and encouraged to do so. It's absolutely crazy. And again, I'm just like, where is this coming from? Who is holding these people accountable? Well, they're not, because over here in the UK, we've got Starmer. We've got a leftist government that is literally filtering down and infiltrating into everything that goes on. So that's fine. The same in Canada. And the big problem that you've got now is it's happening more and more in America. And I firmly believe, honestly, folks, listen to what I say, please, because I've done the research. I know what I'm talking about. We were talking to people living in the United States this past week, and all of them said You know, there's so many people that are voting now who have no idea what they're actually voting for. So many kids are voting and wanting socialism. Do you realize that's what happens in North Korea? It's a dictatorship. You don't want socialism. I can't spell this out enough. You know, you literally have to think, do your research. For me personally, I think that anybody who hasn't sat a test shouldn't be allowed to vote. Tests should be mandatory. You should know what you're voting for, who you're voting for, why you're voting for it. You need to know all the information, the real information. And that's being actually reported by shows like this and social media, which is really, really interesting, that you can no longer trust the news that is sitting on your TV stations all the time. And it's really important that you become aware of what's really going on and what's really happening. So all I can offer, I mean, is to pray for the person that's there. You know, I don't know the guy. You know, I know more and more pastors. There was a thing that was shared with me the other day about a pastor that was praying outside an abortion clinic silently in his head, and he was dragged off. More and more people are disappearing. You know, this is getting dangerous to the point of, oh my goodness, what on earth happens? I mean, here's the other crazy thing about it, that there's so many medical cares. This was something else that filtered into my inbox the other day. There was so many medical cares like cancer, like AIDS, like syphilis, like fill in the blank, that had actually found cures to, but the people that had found the cures mysteriously disappeared. Why? Because Big Pharma is out there and making a heck of a lot of money. And politicians, governmental officials, I'm sure are in there. It's been reported that a lot of it's out there. As we talked about earlier on, you know, you've got a hurricane that's just blown through, and literally, you know, Harris and Biden and the others from their establishment and constituency, they're nowhere to be seen. But someone who is there to be seen is this fella.
Well, thank you very much. Hurricane Helene. Hurricane Helene turned out to be a big one, like just about the biggest that anyone's seen. I spoke with all of the relief people, all of the people that do this for a living and do this at least to help, and they said they've never seen one this bad. Valdosta has been ravaged. The town is very, very badly hurting, and many thousands are without power. They're running low on food and fuel. We brought a lot of it down with us. As you know, our country is in the final weeks of a hard-fought national election. But in a time like this, when a crisis hits, when our fellow citizens cry out in need, none of that matters. We're not talking about politics now. We have to all get together and get this solved. We need a lot of help. They have to have a lot of help down here. We look out for one another. We pull together. We pitch in. We persevere, and we pull it through. That is really the American spirit. That's what made America originally great.
Thank you, Mr. President, for coming and helping to put a spotlight on this city, this state, and this region that has lost so much. Thank you. May God bless you, Mr. President.
Well, I'm now sitting here with Animal on me. I thought we've gone through enough wardrobe changes. I might as well, you know, reveal the final one, because I think sometimes, you know, you've almost got to be like an animal to understand what's going on and what's happening in the world. You know, there's the insanities there. So equally, when you see something like what Trump is doing, and you could say, well, you know what, it's a marketing thing, it's a marketing ploy, you know, the fact that he's there. My old minister used to talk about this. There's power in presence. And whether you like Trump or whether you don't like Trump, whether you think, my goodness, what a sexual predator, whether he's, you know, done this, whatever it is that you're thinking right now, there is no denying that Biden's constituency sent massive amounts of money to Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel. In the hundreds of millions, 567 million package for Taiwan. That's Biden and Harris that have given that. You know, a friend of mine sent me this as well, that basically after the hurricane, the hospitals can no longer sterilize equipment. There's so many bodies in cars that you cannot even count. Bodies are lying everywhere. There's no aid except rescues, 100 times more dire than Katrina. Rescue hasn't even started in most areas. Literally, government Roy Cooper is doing nothing but sent 500 reservists. Zero federal help. CNN cut off the Asheville spokesman when he started to criticize the response from Cooper and Biden. The death toll from Katrina was about 1,600. This would be way past that. There are 1,000 missing. There are thousands missing, should I say. And there's so much more that's going on. And in a quote that was given, RNC Research had said, "Do you have any words to the victims of the hurricanes?" And Biden says, "We've given everything that we can. Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving to them?" And Biden turned around and said, "No." And obviously, we know that's not true. So you have to ask yourselves now, folks that are watching in the United States, because I know you are you willing to put your trust and your faith into somebody who quite clearly is being manipulated, it quite clearly doesn't have your best interests at heart? You may not like Trump. As I said, there's a lot of things about him that are very, very questionable for sure. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, this is bigger than just Trump. This is bigger than just politics. There's a spiritual war going on here. And if you make the wrong decision this time, it could be absolutely fatal. But moving in closer to home, we've got some stuff going on over here already in the United Kingdom. And as a YouTuber was reporting this past week, that there's some, well, I'll let you see for yourself, but there's some quite serious things going on.
Two-tier policing, Starmer. It's 95% fighting age men. It makes no sense. It's economic migrants.
I would just say open the doors, honestly. Anyone and everyone? Yeah.
How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to feed my kids?
I've been homeless for 3 years and I can't get a house.
That is a far-right rally. Neo-Nazis in Glasgow.
If we want our country to be safe, we're labelled far-right, Nazis, racist, then that's what we are.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Glasgow, often ranked as one of the most dangerous cities in Scotland, a country that hasn't really been spoken about when it comes to illegal migration.
I'm pro-immigration. I'm not against immigration, but it needs to be controlled. I'm fed up spending all my money, my tax money, going to all these illegals flooding in, and it's not even that. A lot of them are getting killed on the way, and they're getting exploited and everything. They're coming here and exploiting us, and they're not being peaceful. Don't get me wrong, there's some of them that will be peaceful and be, but it's 95% fighting age men. It makes no sense.
As you know, Glaswegians are a really friendly bunch, but you can't be breaking into a country and then expect to be... Anyway, mate, I don't even want to get into it too much.
If they're genuine, absolutely, 100%. Those people will be embraced here. No one should have to live in an oppressed country. And if the only safety they can find is in the UK, then so be it. There's certainly enough wealth in the UK to accommodate genuine, decent people that want to integrate.
There momentarily. There's a lot of school of thought, as you're going to see momentarily. It's not the only thing that they're talking about and the only thing that's happening there. In this rally, I should sort of set the stage for this, that you've got Free Palestine, votes for Israel, you've got woke messages, LGBTQI messages, transgender messages, you've got pro-Starmer, you've got against Starmer, you've got voting for the left, voting for the right. The left is woke, the right is Nazis and Hitler-loving whatever. And there's so many points that are being made that we sat there as a team and we said, how many people actually know what they're talking about? So when you've got migrants coming over, and they call them illegal immigrants or asylum seekers, and it's important to know the differentiation. So if you're seeking asylum, essentially you're seeking help because back in your own country, you are in danger. You are going to be killed, you may be murdered, your family might be murdered, etc., etc. So you're coming here for safety, and sending them back home is not going to be safe for them. So you've got someone's life and conscience on your hands when you're making these decisions. That's the first thing. For someone that's coming over illegally, well, it's only illegal because it's been defined as illegal. Bear in mind, how do you think the United States was populated? Well, the Native Americans could have said, well, all these illegal Spaniards, all the illegal Irish, all the illegal Germans, send them back home. No, they actually said, welcome to our lands. They didn't know that, unfortunately, the Spaniards, the Germans, the British, everybody else was going to literally destroy their country and destroy their way of life. And if you don't believe me, go and do your research about this whole topic. The Native Americans in Canada, in United States, but also the Aborigines in New Zealand and in Australia were treated absolutely deplorably because people came over. They conquered. They took over. And I think one of the concerning things that we found here, I used to live in Huddersfield. Okay, it's right in the center of England. It's the 10th largest town that exists. And we have got some comments coming in. I'm not ignoring you. Please do stay on, and we'll get to your comments momentarily. But I used to live there, okay? Now, I grew up with ethnic minorities that were coming over. People from Pakistan, people from Jamaica, people from India, people from, all over the world were coming in. And again, I never thought anything of it, nothing of it at all, because so many of them came, they worked, they became lawyers, they became doctors, they became nurses. They literally were like, just you and me. I think the thing that concerns a lot of people is the same thing that concerned people back in the Victorian times when the Jews were coming over, when the Irish were coming over. The Polish came over, the black people came over, the Asian people came over, all throughout time. And every single time after Second World War, they were wanting people from Africa and saying, come on over, we need you, we need the workforce because we're going to rebuild Britain. By the 70s, they turned around and said, you know what, or the 80s, one or the other, but they turned around and said, you know what, oh, we don't need you anymore, go back home. The question for everybody, not just people coming over, not just people traveling, because I've got views potentially, of going elsewhere, depending what happens with the United Kingdom. It's like, so for someone like me, why is it acceptable? But for someone else, it's like, well, it's illegal. It's illegal for them just to turn up and everything. I think it has to be regulated. I think there has to be the question of the intention behind it. Like, why are you here? I think it has to be looked at as well of, are we going to have to support you? Like, I know when I was looking to move to the United States, I was asked straight away, do you have at least $50,000 to get your first year or two under you here in the United States? And at that point, I didn't. I had enough money, but I didn't have that sum of money. I wasn't turned down on that. I didn't go. And it was to do with medical conditions and other stuff, rather than, because prescriptions over in the United States are really expensive, whereas over here right now we get them for free. So I think that's the first thing that needs to be addressed. Why are you here? The second thing that needs to be addressed is, are we needing to literally bail you and support you? Because that's taking taxpayers' money. That's taking other stuff. But again, as we talked about last week, when did it become such a world that we would turn away someone seeking asylum, someone seeking, help? And as we've talked about in shows previous, our security alarm was going off at 2:00 in the morning. No one in the community came over to help. No one even came to the doors to see if we'd actually been broken into, or if there was a fire. The house could have exploded and no one would have come in. So it has become more about the self and the I, rather than saying, okay, these people are coming over, they're struggling, they're in desperate need. What can we do to help? Because isn't that the way of the Christ? Isn't that the way of the Buddha? Rather than saying, right, okay, I've got everything I want, pull up the ladder. How can we help? Because here's the thing. Wade Dyer used to say this a lot. And he used to talk about the universe. Okay, I'm never a big one that talks about the universe. But again, when you ask God, universe, spirit, Kankashua, whatever you want to label it as, when you ask God, how can I help? God replies, how can I help? When you ask the universe, gimme, the universe replies, gimme. So you will get what you ask for. If you ask, how can I be of service? How can I literally help these people struggling? God will let you know and let you, and you again, spirit, whatever, your intuition, but you will know. And God will respond, how can I help you help these people? I used to work at drop-in centers, helping asylum seekers integrate into Huddersfield. Now, the flip side of it, of course, is I don't believe that it is ever right for somebody to come in to someone else's country and turn around and say, well, I'm here now. Look at me. Take my religion. I'm the one that's preaching. I'm the one that's changing everything. I'm the one that's going to force you to do this. You know, we're going to force you to be Muslim if you're a Christian country. We're going to force you to be Hindu if you're a Christian country. We're going to force you to be, Mormon or Jedi or, Seventh-day Adventists, whatever you want to call it. But again, I think it has to be a thing of, no, we want you to feel part of it. We want you to be able to pray and to do all the things that you can do and to be part of our community. But you have to understand that we are a Christian community. We are a Christian country. And we're standing on these things. We're standing on, and that's why, again, when LGBTQI was forced into schools, so many parents turned around and said, no, we are pulling our kids out of schools. We are not having this. Katie and I were one of them. We said, if we are blessed to have kids, there is no way that we are accepting this. There's no way we're accepting this at all, because I don't think it's the right thing to do. I don't think a child needs to be told. In fact, I know a child doesn't need to be told the history of LGBTQI and manipulated and abused as we've seen. I'm not saying that James Corden was doing that, but you saw some of the things that Justin Bieber had to go through. Talking about sex with a young boy in front of millions of people is not acceptable. And who is holding these people account? Who is holding these people account? And it's the exact same thing over here. A couple more clips that we're just going to show, and then we're going to jump to the comments because I'm very much aware that we're running out of time and I'm ranting.
Right. But when you say refugees welcome, at the minute, that's quite a dangerous thing to say when they're crossing the channel and they could potentially die.
But, well, who would be crossing a channel if they weren't in desperate situation?
Public.
What's the problem, mate? Refugees are not welcome here. Not welcome.
Yeah.
Send them back. Support, not support. But what's going to happen is that these people are coming into our country and they will be used as a whip to further undermine the working conditions of the people in Scotland. Right. So we've got to convince the left that mass immigration is not good for the Scots, that us being a hated racial minority in 2066, what will diversity be like for us then? Right. Because we're at the end of the queue for everything just now.
But what about those who actually contribute to society and actually pay taxes, work, and are integrated? It's a different story compared to the illegal immigrants. So.
Well, I would argue that they're not integrating. I would argue that they're staying in their own ethnic bubble within our country.
But yeah, so
that's not integrating.
But sure, shouldn't we find a way to do that though?
It can't be done, mate. You only need to look at Sweden, Denmark. What we have to do is start sending people back and sort their countries out so that they want to stay there.
But even to send them back, that's going to come at a cost. It'll be taxpayers' money sending them back. Same as the reason why we're housing them. That's coming out of our pocket.
They all need to go back, sir. First generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation. They still have to go back.
I think it's in some ways narrow-minded. I understand the point of view that he's making. But to say that, everyone just needs to go back, everyone needs to go back, they need to sort out their own countries. Well, that's part of, if you ever listen to Jesse the Body Ventura, when he talks about what happened with the war in Iraq and 9/11 and so much else that went on around that time, he blatantly said very, very openly that the war in Iraq should never, ever have happened. It happened because the United States stuck their nose in, and a lot of it's people speculate. Iraq had oil, and that was a big part of it in his mind. And again, it may have been. I don't know. I'm not there. I can't. And I won't comment on stuff that I'm not 100% knowledgeable about. But again, when you start to look at what's going on and what's happening, you see how many wars have been fought because of power, how many wars have been fought because of money and greed. And a lot of it stems from that. These people that are coming over because they're in desperate need of help. They're in desperate need, and they look in their own countries and say, well, our country isn't safe. Let's go to the UK. How desperate must you be right now to come to the UK? Heck, if I was an immigrant, I wouldn't be coming to the UK. Heck, I'd flipping go to, desert island or something. I wouldn't be coming here to the UK because, again, America is, was told it's the land of opportunity. It's the land of opportunity if you've got money, if you've got connections, if you've got power, if you've got fame. But for a lot of people, just to go there and to make hundreds of millions of dollars or to find somewhere safe to be, for the majority of people, it's not. There was a comment from Epic Wolf 3 I'm going to pull up again because I think this really talks, and again, it really pinpoints exactly what we're talking about with the fact that Biden and Harris gave so much money away in the hundreds of millions to Taiwan, to Ukraine, to wherever else it was that I mentioned. And literally the people left having to rebuild their lives after a hurricane that was a Cat 5, it's like, what are they meant to do with $700? That won't even do for the scrappage fee. Citizens no longer seem to be the priority. And this is what, folks, this is what you have to be aware of. Ask yourself genuinely, do they have the best interests of the people at heart? That used to be what the government was all about. Over here now, I can't say that they have the best interests of the people at the heart. I really can't. I don't think any schools that are allowing pornography in for young children, any schools that are allowing drag queens in, any schools that are allowing, these sex offenders and again, you saw in Justin Bieber's case, literally children to be groomed legally. I don't think that's ever with somebody's best interests at heart. And you can say, well, that's Hollywood. Doesn't the government govern Hollywood as well? Or are they just a law to themselves? We're ranting. We're ranting. But I think what it all comes down to, and I think to sum up is this. When you see all these things going on, you see all these things happening, it's very hard to look around and to see, again, and I don't know if I can find the clip, but, Palestine, protest marches and, immigrant protest marches and this protest march and that protest march. And there's something else, that you've got to be concerned about. There's something else you've got to be bothered about. I think what it comes down to is you have to be focusing inwards and saying, right, what's at the root here? What's at the core of all that's going on? But ultimately, learning how to focus and learning how to observe the situation, but not take on the energy. And I know, my goodness, I know that that's difficult when you see things like this.
Side.
People literally being tackled.
They're all chasing him. They're all chasing him.
People being chased. I think the guy was trying to sell something. Police around all over the place. It's a scary sight.
Yeah, someone came over.
And, I've lived here in the UK all my life. And when I'm at a position now where I'm being told, look, if you say certain things that we don't agree with, we're going to arrest you. We can arrest you for your opinion. We can arrest you for your thoughts. We can arrest you for, anything. And they then fabricate this false narrative about you that could be the most heinous things on the planet. You start to say, well, hang on a second. For me, if that's what it takes, for just to reach that one person that's going to make a massive difference, then maybe that's the role that I play in this world. I don't know. I don't know what's happening with all of this stuff, but I know that it's not acceptable for it to be happening. When we're talking about immigration, again, you have to be very, very clear as to what you mean and very clear as to the situations, case by case. And that's something always to look at. But I think the most important thing is you can do for yourself right now as we wrap up the show is literally to be able to observe the situation, but not to take on the energy that's coming there, because it's going to require you more than anything to keep your heads. And that's part of the thing. If you notice, everyone in these social rallies, dare I say it, they're coming from a certain class society. You know, they're coming from working class, a lot of the people who haven't got a pot to piddle in, who are struggling financially, are seeing, you know, Westminster doing horrific things, are seeing Whitehill in the United States doing horrific things. They're seeing, you know, all of these things happen, and they're saying, no, we need to stand up against this. We need to fight back, because if we don't, then nothing's going to change. And historically speaking, this has been the catalyst that has literally driven change for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's just scary in many ways to be living through it and to be seeing it and to be experiencing it. But there is still hope, because as you've seen all the way throughout this show, Jesus is on the move. And you may say, well, I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in Jesus. And that's your prerogative, because he believes in you, whether you believe in him or not. And for me to be speaking in such a way, I know that there's something going on. I know that there's something happening. I don't know why I'm back on the air for a small audience, but after a meeting I had yesterday, I'm one step closer to understanding a little bit more as to why I'm here, what we're doing, what's happening. So my prayer for you this week is that you find the strength to keep your head, to keep focused, to fight the good fight, to take a stand where it needs to be stood, but to ultimately know how to pick your battles, because not every hill is worth dying over. And make sure more than anything that you know who you're voting for, you know why you're voting for them, you know what they're really about, you do your research, and ultimately make the wisest decisions that you possibly can, because your world needs you. Your world really, really needs you. And we're out of time. Folks, thank you so much for watching the Mind, Body and Soul podcast. I have been your host, John Morris. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend, because this could be the very thing they need to hear in their hour of struggle. And if you are interested in supporting us, you can do at thejohnmorris.co.uk. You can support us also now on YouTube memberships. We have the silver membership that starts for like $2.99 a month, and you get exclusive access. You get exclusive photos behind the scenes and all sorts of stuff. You never know what you're going to see with this one. Believe me, you never know what you're going to see in this show. You also have the gold package and then the platinum ultra package, which is a little bit more expensive. You get some really cool giveaways that include prints, private mentoring sessions with me, and so much more, all put into a prize giveaway and so much more. So that's definitely one you may want to check out. And it's a great way to support the show. It's a great way to support yours truly. Keep me on the air and keep... I think it's really important that we have these shows, we have these conversations, because people need to be aware of what's really, really going on. And as Rumi said, I never speak on anything that I don't have first-hand experience in. With that in mind, folks, we are out of time once and for all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, God bless, and we will see you same place, same time next week for more Mind, Body, and
Mind, Body, Soul.